And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Beyond the 90. Apologies that they were supposed to go live. We had loads of problems, but we're finally getting this sorted. We've got Ali again. Ali, honestly, mate, you're one of my favorite guests to have on. But how are you, mate? It's been a while.
First ever guest on Beyond the 90, I think. Yeah, good, very well, and looking forward to the Schlupp IU derby on Saturday.
It is. And speaking of that, again, I've just let's kick it off straight away with that. I did a little bit of research before this.
Yeah,
Next year, Schlupp would have played for you longer than he's played for us.
really? Oh,
Yeah, we
dear.
had him from 2010 to 2017. Then you had him
Yeah.
2017 to 2024. And if he plays for you next season, he would have played for you for 8 years.
Some Palace fans might say it's far too long. Yeah, look, Schlupp's is now on the bench. I think Schlupp's gonna will slowly become loved again by Palace fans because he's a squad player and a lovable squad player. But the 2 seasons before that, he was just being overused because we didn't recruit well enough. So he kind of got scapegoated. But he can make an impact off the bench because he's still very quick over 10 yards and he still can play in a few positions. And we play wing backs now. So we did it. The only thing that we didn't do well in the window was cover left wing back if Mitchell got injured. So Schlupp could end up being a cover for that position. So yeah, he's all right. He's doing okay.
But how do you feel about him as well? Because again, I kind of understand what you mean. Again, as a squad player, he's not going to pull up any trees, but he's going to come on and give you the effort. He's not got the final product, but you know what, the fans just like, Joe, he's going to give us something. And I think Schlupp is a likable player.
He is a like that's the thing. He was liked by Palace fans, and then Gallagher left, and we didn't recruit in the central midfield area in Vieira's last season. So he was sort of forced to consistently play Schlupp in central midfield, which is he's come in and done a job for us there before. But and then after that, Saha left, Elise got injured, and we were playing in Roy before Roy went consistently on the left, and he just got scapegoated because he's a great squad player. Actually, I think he's a good squad player. And when he makes those cameos, he came on against Fulham towards the end of last season and scored a great goal. And suddenly Palace fans were sort of liking him again. So I think when he's in that role as a squad player off the bench, fans warm to him more, and that's what he will be this season, a squad player.
Mhm.
And that's how I feel about him, really. Like, what he was linked with a move to Celtic in the summer. I wonder if we just weren't prepared to let him go for two reasons. One, because IU went, and then two, because we failed to cover the left wing back position.
So more, but again, he is a versatile player. He could play left wing back. He could probably play left. I won't say left winger, but he can play central midfield, as you mentioned. So as a
Mm.
player to kind of fill in where you need, he can do that job for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Glasner's come in and got him fit again because he was very unfit last season. So I've no qualms about him actually. He's just being in the squad and having that depth.
Hmm. Fair enough. And then coming into, you mentioned it. Oh, well, I'll get into the first bit because the last time you were on the channel, I've got the date down, 29th of
Mm.
March, 2023. So it's been over a year and a half.
Wow, it's been a while. Yeah,
It has. And
you've been off rattling Leeds United fan.
that's been, and we've had
Yeah.
a lot of the, oh, I forgot we had that covered as well. Um,
Mm.
certain Leeds fan channel, in terms of rattling as well. But coming back to that game again, considering what we went through in that time, let's see if we can get this up.
Yeah.
Again in this game, we lost 2-1, if you remember that
Uh,
game. It was
that
we scored.
was
Yeah,
that was Roy's return, wasn't it?
yes, that was, yeah. You just got rid of Vieira. Roy came in at that time. So, in terms of the
Mm.
squad lineup, I'll show you it. But there is
Mm.
about half the team that's still there, and some of the team that's either been
Mm.
benched or has moved on to other teams now.
Yeah. I think looking at that team, so Vincenzo Guaita's now gone, and we'll have Dean Henderson in goal, who's obviously come in, is now basically England's number three. I mean, the main difference will be the system. We now play three at the back and wing backs. It's a really good system. It's very intense. It allows us to press. Joachim Anderson was really the surprise departure. Everyone thought it would be Mark Gahey, Utamia, everything. So many Geordie bids in the bin. Mark Gahey, Mark Gahey. But Gahey has stayed. Mitchell will now be left wing back. Joel Ward won't be in the side. because we've now got Manos, Colombian international right wing back, who's superb. Decore is back, came on second half, changed the game against Chelsea. Alongside him will be Adam Walton. And honestly, I still don't think people realise what England have got in Adam Walton. Out of all of our players, he's one who I think will reach right to the top. I think he will actually probably maybe even end up being held in higher esteem than Eze. But we can come on to that in a bit. Eze will obviously be playing. Just to clarify something for Leicester fans and anyone in England in general, Eze is not a left winger. He can play there. He's a 10. But Gareth Southgate and all these England managers keep playing him out of position. So we got Eze, but also, I mean, Mateta was the one who got that goal, and I mean, even for a long time after that, like that was probably before Glasner came in. That was probably his best moment in the Palace shirt, that goal, because it ignited what was really a nice period for Roy at the end of that season. It should have ended, so Roy could have gone out to cheers at that point. But then Mateta sort of went off again, but when Glasner's come in, Mateta's career is just ignited beyond anything that Palace fans thought. Obviously with what he did at the Olympics with France, it's mad that people were talking about us getting an offer between 30 to 40 million for him, because if you told me that this time last year, I said you're absolutely insane. So he's exciting, but then there's also new signings that were added on deadline day, which is going to be intriguing. In Ketia, which we're really excited to see.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned this. I think you've had a really underrated, I think, transfer window. But in terms of that, we'll get into Glasner. Well, we'll get on to Glasner now. Just obviously since Roy was he retired now, or he stepped aside. Glasner's come in.
I don't think Roy is officially retired. Roy was sort of, it was tried to be ended amicably, and then he was unwell at the end, and we're not really sure what happened. It was really, really sad, to be honest. Like, he should have been allowed to walk away to cheers a few months after that win over you, because everyone was cheering his name on the last day. It was perfect, and there was like some banners and stuff. The fans were unhappy, but no one. The phrase from the banners that the fanatics unfurled at Arsenal that made like match of the day and stuff just said something about the board making weak decisions. We never mentioned Hodgson's name specifically, and that's something that the media misrepresented. I heard trickles of Hodgson out. Palace fans were just sad that he'd been allowed to get to that point. As a 76-year-old man, he should have been allowed to bow out gracefully and in that brilliant way. And then, like, to be honest, last season was really grim. If you remember, like, when I used to come on during lockdown Hodgson years, it was like that again. We had a lot of injuries last season as well, to be fair to Hudson. Like, Elise and Eze kept getting injured. Some Palace fans would say he didn't manage them properly. But then Glasner came in. Initially, it was a bit quiet for a few games, and then it just completely took off to the point we finished 10th, top 10, which I never would have thought. And he's got this system that just allows us to press relentlessly and have players double up on other players. It's so intense. But I don't know if Leicester fans, you're going to see that us really at that intense level yet, based on the fact that Glasner's teams notoriously start slow, which is why we're not panicking about 1 point in 9. But I think with the international break as well, it's going to be a bit of a weird game coming back, because we've had players. This is probably good for Leicester. We've had players everywhere. We've had Ismail Assar, who's just joined from Watford. He's been in Senate with Senegal. Kamada, who came from Lazio, he's been with Japan. You've obviously had we've got the Colombians, Manos and Lerma off as well, and we've had Eze with England and stuff. So I still don't think we're going to be quite where we want to be. I still think it'll take a few weeks for us to really get up and running.
Yeah, it makes sense. And in terms of, because it's been a really weird one, obviously knowing you for years as well, knowing you through the Hodgson era, knowing you from these, and now going into a completely different era in Glasner. Is it weird to have these many eyes on you? Because so many people from like a neutral perspective were talking about Palace, going, do you know what, Palace might be that underdog team or the team that could push teams with the manager and the squad they've got. Was,
Yeah.
was it a bit weird from your perspective? You've been mentioning conversations that usually you'd just be kind of
It's
distant
two
from.
things that are weird for me. Is one, the trans we've got so many coveted players now. Like the transfer window was really stressful. I think actually the board went through a difficult time last season, and Parish has navigated that. Because for me, the reappointment of Hodgson was probably the worst decision he's made as Palace chairman. He's done so much that's good, but that reappointment was weak in my opinion, and the wrong decision. But it has, I can't really argue, it's led us to Glasner eventually, which I think was more John Textor, who's going to be going to Everton. But I think the weird thing for me, there's two things. Is one, so many coveted players because the window was stressful. Usually, we were used to just having the stress of Saha leaving, but it was like Elise went, which was so disappointing because for me, he's such an incredibly special player, as we saw at the Olympics, and we're already seeing it by Munich. Took that blow, and then it's like the Gahey saga, and then Joachim Andersen is the one that goes.
Mm.
And then obviously even to the last day you're thinking please don't anyone come in for a bid for Eberechi Eze. So we had the big three really, which was Elise, Eze, and Gahey, but we've ended up with two out of the three still here. And I think you're never going to replace Michael Elise. Kamada is an interesting one from Lazio. He's a clever player, but maybe his end product isn't quite there. He's going to be a weird one for fans to get used to, I think. But Nketiah has excited us. And I saw Joel Ward on TalkSport saying that he was looking very good in training. And he hasn't been obviously on international duty, so he was going to be fresh, ready for his home debut on Saturday. The other weird thing for me is just having such implicit faith in a manager. Like, given what we saw from Glasner at the end of last season, the way we were playing, given that this guy, his pedigree is winning a Europa League with Frankfurt. So I didn't particularly agree. Well, I didn't agree with the sale of Joachim Andersen. I was angry. I think he's a special player in the way that he can dictate possession and really dictate games from the back. But allegedly from insiders, Glasner was more up for Andersen leaving than Gahey because he likes pace and to play a high line at the back. So I was kind of like, well, who am I to sort of argue with this Europa League manager? I want the board. My thing this summer was I want the board to back his tactical system. In the past, we had, we got Frank de Boer in, and that was farcical. We were playing Joel Ward at right wing back, and they've done that on the whole. To be fair to the board, so if I want the board to back him in that way, I've got to back him and believe in him. So it's weird to have just so many. But I mean, we had the most Palace, to sum it up, the most club with players in the Euros England squad was Palace. We had four, and obviously Gahey was, everyone was doubting whether Gahey would be good enough. Palace fans knew that how good he would be. Eze was misused, as I was talking to you off air. Like, he is a 10, not a left winger, and got cameo roles. Henderson's obviously the number 3. Adam Wharton is the one. The thing I'll say to Leicester fans is he's had a niggly injury. I'm hoping he's going to be fit. Watch Adam Wharton on Saturday and our new central, and him. Hopefully, he's going to play alongside Decore. They played the second half at Stamford Bridge together. I genuinely believe it's going to be one of the best central midfield partnerships in the Premiership. But Adam Wharton, I don't think England have had a pass of the ball and a player like since Carrick and Scholes. Obviously Gerrard and Lampard are great, but Carrick and Scholes are quite unique players who sit deep that you normally see in other countries like Spain. And I think it's going to be interesting how England use Adam Wharton, because we underused Carrick over the years. And we obviously famously shunted Scholes to the left. Are we going to use this guy? Because just the way that he angles himself when he receives the ball and passes the ball, he's a special player. And I think this time next year, to be honest, I don't think he'll be with us. I think he's going to go for a lot of money next summer.
I'm hoping you've got him on a big contract with a big release clauses with it as well, because
I don't think he's got a release clause. So I think we lost Elise for like 45 million because we did well to renegotiate that release clause, because we almost lost him to Chelsea the year before. Chelsea fans had him in all their like teams. They did this summer, but they still didn't buy him. It's funny that. But Wharton doesn't have a release clause. So I think Parish has played Newcastle all summer. It's been quite fun because Newcastle fans on social media are uber sensitive. So it's been really fun. You to me are everything. so many Newcastle Geordie bids in the bin. Mark Gahey, Mark Gahey. They missed out on Alanga too. Our centre backs in red and blue. Mark Gahey, Mark Gahey. Yeah. Anyway, but he will. Paris will. I reckon he's going to go 80 million at least for one.
Yeah, I was thinking the Harry Maguire. You were saying 80 million. I was thinking
Yeah,
Harry Maguire money for that
yeah,
level of a player.
yeah.
And just but in terms of your ambitions for the season, you said you've got a
Mm.
slow start at the moment. I'll speak to one of my mates as a Fulham fan, and he's he's spent so many years watching Fulham that he goes, I'm still not convinced that we're going to stay up. I just want a 17th right now because of the PTSD that he's
Mm.
had coming up and down the leagues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
From your position, what would you say? Because you're a well-established Premier League team now, but what's your like ambitions for the season?
I think we came 10th last season, and that was with half a season Roy Hodgson tax. So, but it's difficult, Neil, because like obviously then the target, can you get higher, ninth, eighth, seventh, even creep into the European spots? It's so difficult because even as much of a circus Chelsea were last season, they still found themselves in one of the European spots. And that sort of top seven, eight, they spend their squads are just full of multi-million pound signings that it is very tough for me to make that top eight. But I think for me, can we go better than 10th? It would be the target. And can we aim for shoot for stars and creep into Europe? And obviously, Leicester are the absolute barometer for that. What you did when you won the league and won the FA Cup. For me, I'd always rather a cup run than finish 10th or 9th. Like, it's much more fun. Get all the Palace fans to Wembley. And you know what? We've actually got a favourable draw in the third round of the League Cup for once. We're away to QPR. No disrespect to QPR, but I do think that that's a good route to the fourth round, and then you're one away from the quarters. And what Glasner showed at the end of last season was that on our day under Glasner we could beat anyone. Like we beat Man United, we ended Klopp at Anfield, which was just incredible. So the cups for me is always a target, and that frustrates me actually when people talk about Palace. They're like they're so boring, they never do anything. But we've had 2 trips to Wembley in this time in the Premier League. You know, we obviously had the final where we were minutes from winning it on Pardew dance. And then we had the semi-final with Vieira at Wembley. And people don't talk about that. And both those teams, the Pardew team, you had Saha and Balassi on one wing. The Vieira team, we had Conor Gallagher and playing great football. That was not boring. So for me, a cut run, but obviously going one better and actually winning it would be amazing. I've got my eye on the League Cup, to be honest.
I think also with that, I think was it 2019 you got to the semi-finals?
Yeah, that was under Vieira.
Hmm.
We got to semis under Vieira, and it's just annoys me because it doesn't like there was someone. Is it Liam Vizfay or something? A YouTuber,
Hmm.
famous YouTuber, Burnley fan, who did a whole show about Palace are so boring. What's the point in them? And went through all our Premier League positions. Didn't mention once like either of those cup runs. You know, so with 2 really good cup runs with 2 really exciting teams. And that doesn't happen if you're not in the Premier League because you can't build the squad to really do that. I mean, it's very rare that teams have done it obviously before from the Championship, but to get the level of squad that we had to have those cup runs, it doesn't happen if you're not operating consistently in the Premier League. So I love another cup run, but to go one better and win it's the ultimate dream. But Premier League wise, top 10 again, but can we creep within that top 10 a little bit further?
Fair enough. Fair enough. And it makes sense as well. And in terms of even the what you how you've been to ask the question again, it's from the outside looking on what not Palace fans saying, what other fans are saying about you. Because at times I can imagine that people, oh yeah, I forgot kind of people that are not following their club a lot. Oh, I forgot Palace were kind of in the Premier League. How has that been reaction, especially since the way that you ended last season?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's suddenly talking about us again. Yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, it's interesting. You know, and we rattled a few fan bases to be honest. Like because we beat Newcastle pretty easily, and then obviously with the Gahey thing, and then like the Anfield performance was unbelievable because like that was at the height of Liverpool going for the title. Like they were right in it. I think they might have even been top when we played them, and we went there and won. So yeah, it's interesting to have everyone talking about us again. But I think that kind of makes it harder in a sense because like when Glasner came in at the end of last season, it's new and the system's new. Now the way that clubs us work so hard behind the scenes to research teams and the analysis on how teams play will come up with plans to stop the system. So that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, it is fun. It's fun. It feels like we're back rattling the big teams. So that tells me we were in a good place. Like,
Fair enough.
yeah.
And I imagine it's a really good position to be in. And going to that from a Hodgson era, which was we've kind of done the reverse, where we had
Mm,
a Maresca, which I'm not saying is the same as Glasgow, but the technical style, individuals,
mm,
they've got a system, everybody plays to that. So now we've
yeah.
kind of gone back to a system of not quite Roy Hodgson, but more physical, high press, kind of beat your
Mm,
team and see if we can nick something off you.
yeah.
And we've got the reverse now. So how is it being that kind of technical style? Because people are naturally going to think, oh, De Boer, and the De Boer didn't work.
De Boer was just a bad manager. Like when people say that, like, oh, Palace are adverse to taking risk with different managers. De Boer was just a bad manager, and I think that's been proven with his record since. He just wasn't a very good manager. Whereas Glasner is totally different pedigree. You know, he, as I said, he's won a Europa League with Frankfurt. Um, so it's different because we've actually got a manager who is installing a system that allows people to get on the ball. And actually, I know we're going to talk about IU in a moment, and I think he's a very good signing for you. But when he dropped IU to the bench, that for me was a statement of intent. I was like, this manager wants to score goals
Mm.
and go for wins of games of football rather than just make us difficult to play against. Um, and it's just the little things he does, like the way he got Elise playing. Because I know there was one goal that Elise scored against Man United, and Parish talked about it in an interview about how he told Elise, like, why don't you just go for the inside post? And he scored this great goal against Man United. It's just unbelievable what he's done in terms of us getting on the ball, the way that we pass the ball, but also we are intensely looking to score. But then also our press is just like nothing I've seen. It's ridiculous. Like to sum up, like we played West Ham and Newcastle at home. And after 20 minutes, the way that we were pressing, we were like, I think we were like 3-4 up against West Ham within like half an hour. And their players were just looking around to each other like, what is this? So I'm excited to get back to that, really. I want everyone fit. He's just a proper manager. And to be honest with you, yeah, he's got great players like Elise playing. The other barometer of him is the way he's got some of our lesser known players. So, for example, he's got Nathaniel Klein, who some might think's retired, playing as a right-sided centre back brilliantly. Uh, Will Fuse, who we thought was done. He didn't have a great game against Chelsea last game out. He got him playing like brilliantly. So yeah, it's just having a proper manager who's just so tactically good, and but is also so intent on winning. And that was probably like he played the best team, his best team in the cup. Like he wants to win the cups. That was something about Hodgson. He just rested them and seemed to be happy with mid-table. This is someone who is not going to settle for 10th and is not going to settle for that mid-table season. He wants more. You know, he's a guy who's won the Europa League, and that's the difference.
Hmm. That sounds really good as well. And with him, is it he's because this is what I had with Enzo, and it's the reason why I always go back to it
Mm.
because I loved him and I think he did some great work with us. Do I
Yeah,
think he'll work at Chelsea? I personally don't think just because of the situation at Chelsea is incredible. I've never seen
yeah,
something like it. Is he set on this is my style, this is how I play, and if you don't really like it, you don't fit into it, you're
yeah,
off.
yeah. I think that's Joachim Anderson because Joachim Anderson got caught out at Brentford when on the first day, and he's a great player, but pace isn't his best asset. And the insiders at the club, what you hear on sort of sound bites are that Glasner wants a pacey back line because he played, as I said, we press high. He wants everyone to be pushing up, and so I think Anderson was probably more Glasner's call. I think maybe they decided one of them has to go, um, and yeah, I think that it is strange in that sense that we've got a manager who who is making those calls that are different in terms of I mean I think I watched Enzo. We obviously watched Chelsea as well last week. I don't know, they played well first half, but then we came back into it the second half, so I think it's going to be a weird one watching Maresca. But yeah, Glasner's very different in that sense, is that he has a very set way of playing. But what's going to be interesting is, I think the only question mark I've got, it's not a question mark, but it's as if I don't think he can do it, but we need to find out if he can do it, is can he adapt? So when teams start finding ways to stop the system, what's his adaptability to tweak the system to outwit that manager?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes his subs have been questionable. His in-game management as well, I'm still interested in as well. And then also the other thing for me is in a couple of times I thought he could switch from a back three to four at the back sometimes. So can he switch the systems within game? So there's still a few things that I'm interested to know, but the system he has is the most tactically astute system I've seen at Palace.
Fair enough. No, I think that's really interesting about, again, Glasner as well. And from what you saw from Chelsea, you remember
Yeah.
you said he dropped off a little bit at the end. How do you think that? I know you only watched a little bit of them.
Yeah.
What, from your perspective, what have you saw of them? Because I've got my own perspective. I've mentioned before, I don't think it's going to work at Chelsea because of all the stuff that's going on pitch, on off the pitch, 1,000 different
Yeah.
players. What do you make of that?
They were very good first half. I thought they were good first half. And then Decore came on and changed the game for us, and they weren't so good second half. I mean, what they kind of lacked was being ruthless. They should have got the second goal and killed us off. So the biggest thing I took out of it that they needed to work on was becoming more ruthless. I don't know. Like, honestly, I did a prediction podcast with Doug, friend of both of our shows, Dugout channel, really good channel, and I went for Chelsea fourth. I just think they've got good players like Cole Palmer, obviously. I think their midfield three, like Enzo, Casado. I think Lavia being back fit for them is key. I saw potential, but it's just so hard to call with Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it's a really hard one to predict. But I think they'll do okay. I don't think it's going to be like a terrible season where they were really low at one point with Poch. It's going to be interesting. But they've got a lot of background stuff going on as well because the owners are arguing. For me, so I don't know. I think that I don't. To be honest, it's really hard to gauge any team at the moment because I don't think any teams apart from Man City are in full flight yet. So I saw potential in Chelsea. What I would say is they needed to be more ruthless because they could and should have killed us off. I think what I find hilarious is and ridiculous is the decision of Dewsbury Hall to go there. I mean, it's like career suicide. Did he not see what happened to Danny Drinkwater? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, I mean, I don't even want to say this, right? Because I obviously don't hate Brighton, but he also had the option of going to Brighton. But how he's not going to get in that midfield when they've got Enzo, Casado, Lavia. They've got so many different players like in Conku that they can play in the 10. Cole Palmer can play in the 10. It's like, mate, you're not going to play. Like, you could have gone to Brighton and probably played, or stayed at Leicester. Like, I just think that was a really weird one. A poor career decision. Whoever's advising him should not be taking any sort of cut. Do
I
you
think
agree with that?
for me, he went not because he wanted to, because I think we've had a situation before. We're talking about like 2002, that kind of
Mm,
era. I think it was the club kind of said he didn't want to go. Genuinely, he didn't want to go. And if it was
yeah.
going to be anywhere, it's going to be a manager that he knows the ball. He knows he
Mm,
loves this club, and he's mentioned that when we got relegated, he spoke in multiple interviews where he said, "I took it personally, and the fact that I got this club relegated. It's my job to get them back to
mm.
the Premier League. If he was
Yeah,
going to leave, it
great
was
attitude.
brilliant. It was just, and he
Mm,
epitomized the club. Now, with him, and a lot of lazy journalism has come out, and I rate him so highly. A lot of lazy journalism played. He was the best player at Leicester City. If you looked around our squad, there was a
yeah,
few brilliant players. Jamie Vardy was on 20 goals last
mm.
season, which is really good.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, for his age, and I think he will do 10 goals this season, in my opinion. You've got
Yeah.
Didi, who was a fantastic player. Harry Winks completely overlooked.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm excited to see him. Yeah. Not Harry Winks, the one before. Um, yeah.
Mavididi. He's a
Yeah,
special.
very excited about him. Yeah.
He's got Fatau, who is again came
Mm,
really into the end of the
yeah.
season. But he's only like 19 years old and he's looking like absolute
Yeah.
still figuring out the Premier League at the
Mm,
moment. We had just a keeper, Hermansen, was just ridiculous. And it's not to take
mm,
anything away from Dewsbury Hall. It's kind of what we mentioned about Glasner, that the system works.
mm.
So when
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was part of that team, he clicked and he was fantastic. But to say we were a
yeah.
one-man team was just lazy journalism, in my opinion.
Yeah. I
And
guess maybe he went there then because he knows he fits the system of that manager.
yeah,
Um, but I just don't see him playing much. I get no, actually, do you know what though? That might be wrong because they're in the Conference League. I think he'll play in the Conference League because they've not even put Cole Palmer in that squad. So he will get some sort of football, I guess, and his chance to sort of stake his claim. Um, but yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong and he will get in there. But given they're in the conference, he'll definitely play in those group games, won't he?
yeah, and he's going to get a pay rise, and we're
Yeah, big one.
hoping that yeah,
And a
massive pay rise,
and
and
an 8 year contract that Chelsea give out.
yeah, it was I think to 2031 with the option of extended or something stupid.
Just made for
But
life, isn't it?
yeah, and so a lot of Leicester fans were like, we go well. We just hope that they don't treat you like crap
Yeah.
because that's what we don't want. And worst
Mm.
comes to worst, he's always welcome to come back here.
I
Later,
have to say, like when our players get linked to clubs, like I did not want Elise to go there. I was like, I just don't want that for you. Like you're better than that circus. Like you said, that fear that they won't get treated well. But it could still work out for him. I think, like as I said, I think, like you said, I've said the Conference League would be a great way for him to stake his claim. So
I'm with you, and I think he again could be he'll be a good player. But I think the Leicester fans were like, we bid him well, we wish him all the best. But again, there's part of us that goes, if it doesn't end up, because you look at the likes of Ben Chilwell went there, now he can't even get a game.
yeah,
Um, that's because they bought a player that fits a particular system, and that system isn't
yeah,
Enzo's system, as we were mentioning before. But it's
yeah.
not like they don't have choice; they have plenty of choice in plenty of positions that they can
Could
afford that.
could come back to you. Look at us and Wolford Saha. I went to Man United, didn't work out, came back. So
With Ben Chilwell, he's one of the few players that we're like, don't come back.
oh
um,
yeah, not him. Dewsbury Hall though, maybe.
Dewsbury Hall, 100%, but
Yeah,
Chilwell was. I think what it was the way that he treated the club. First of all, he downed tools before he left. He downed tools for 6 months, and that's something that people don't talk about.
yeah,
And second of all, the way he belittles Leicester and says, for example, when we lost to them, I think when we lost to them in the cup or something, because it was the worst
yeah. I
day of
remember.
my life, and I was just like, this just
Yeah,
needs to calm down. So
yeah.
we're a relatively family club, but he's one of the players that gets
He's also pretty terrible though. He's it's like
yeah,
when you watch him, like shocking.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. But and then coming back to again, a couple of things we wanted to mention. I can't believe we've got this far in and not talked about them. We talked about a little bit. Andre Ayew, as a Jordan Ayew. Why do I keep saying Andre Ayew?
yeah,
So Jordan Ayew again. I remember you were going when we were first linked with him. I was thinking, why are we buying this kind of player? And then
mm.
after the first game I saw of him, I was like, I get it. I get it now. So
Yes, yeah.
what were
Because
your
like my thoughts, well, I saw like the comments from the Leicester fans on social media, and like they were all totally against it. But I mean, I can see why, because you look at his career stats: 23, 24, 4 goals; 22, 23, 4 goals; 21, 22, 3 goals; 2021, 1 goal. He did have a good season in 1920 with 9 goals, where he actually played in his position up front. Now, this is the interesting thing with Ayew is he would say he's a forward. We played him predominantly on the right hand side. He played out of position for us for a number of years. Interestingly enough, I think his best position is off the left, cutting in on his right, which he played for us in Roy Hodgson's little resurgence period at the end of that season when he came in for Vieira. Um, but I mean, for me, I know you've got a lot of Premier League experienced players anyway. And for me, Leicester are a club of that Premier League infrastructure, your training ground, and you were really just temporarily in the championship for a year, and now have a very good chance of staying up with the points deduction fiasco this week going in your favour. But any club that's just come back up, the aim's surely got to be to stay in the Premier League. You've got to be a nightmare to come to. You've got to make it horrible for the big clubs. And Jordan Ayew is the absolute definition of that. Like, he will press relentlessly. He will win so many fouls. Like, actually, if you actually want to stay up, you buy Jordan Ayew and James Ward-Prowse, because I will win the fouls and Ward-Prowse for the set plays. But like, honestly, he is the definition of just leave nothing out there. He will be. I think he's not a glittering signing, but he is, for me. I couldn't actually, in some ways, couldn't actually think of a more perfect signing for a side who have just come back up and just need to stay in the league this season. He is frustrating. Like, he can polarize opinion amongst fans. As I said, when Glasner came in, when he dropped Ayew, I saw that as a statement of intent of us moving on from that, just being that team that make it difficult for other teams. I mean, I used to in my podcast say that Forrest Gump ran a lot, but he wasn't a professional footballer. Sometimes that was one of the things I say about Jordan. He can frustrate, he can make the wrong decisions in the final third, but he will give more to you. And I think the Leicester fans, just to gauge if you gauge the reactions of Palace fans on social media, I understood why Leicester fans were skeptical, but Palace fans were saying to you, no, this is perfect for you in so many ways. And I don't know, we might regret letting him go, because I talk about Glasner and the pressing. He's perfect for that. And for so many games, he can, at Sellers Park under the lights, where he could just add to that intensity, the way that he plays. But, I think for us, it was a no-brainer. He's 33, 34, and it's like 6-7 million. So I think it's a deal that works well for both parties.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, again, I was mentioning it. Once we saw him, and I was like, I get it. And he was played up front, because before we got
Yeah.
Edwards getting to the second, he played on the
Mm.
wing, which I was really impressed
Yeah.
with. You mentioned his tackles, but also his ability to put it in a challenge, go, do you know what, I'm going to win the ball back for my team.
Oh
And
my
his
God.
heart is brilliant.
His ability to win the ball back is just unbelievable. The man will not give up. As well, thinking about Jamie Vardy being 39, is it 39? Like, a
38
great
next
player to
year.
have alongside Jamie Vardy and do the running. Like, yeah, he will give you so much. He will give you so much. He's a great character, and you need good characters in the dressing room in that first season back.
Yeah, and I think
The
that's
intriguing one is one we're going to come on to is Hudson Edouard. Because I'd say Ayew is the more secure signing. Like, Palace fans were probably more disappointed to lose Ayew than they were Hudson Edouard. At the same time, I think Palace fans are intrigued about Edouard and actually fear it could come back to haunt us, because like there's just something there, I think, with him that maybe we didn't ignite.
mm.
The obviously the Scottish League, different levels, but he came, with his goal record at Celtic was great. I've got it up here. I'll get it up here in a minute. But I think the thing with Edouard is he needs to be like really loved in the main man, which he was at Celtic. He had like this amazing charm, and we didn't take on that charm for some various reasons. But like, we never actually really charged from at all. I remember like Sheffield United away, first day of the season last season, he scored. Ayew got the assist. The fans sang Jordan Ayew's name. I feel like he's a player who just thrives off being the main man. And like, so he had a dream debut for us against Tottenham, came and scored 2 goals. Everyone was like cheering him on because he was making his home debut. He thrived off it. And then there were times as well, he never quite got the momentum with us. Like, you'd think he'd get some goals and you think, well, he's got to stay in the team now, or he'd get injured, or he'd get out the team maybe a little bit unfairly. It just never quite worked for him. There are things about him that might frustrate you, like his touch, his ability to hold up the ball isn't great. At Celtic, I think he played off a striker. But he is one of those players who you think he could go on a great goal scoring one and really haunt us.
Mm.
But we actually gave him a new contract, so he's on loan. So But I think Palace fans were, to be honest, saw it as were pleased, myself included, that we got Ayu's wages off the books, and that probably helped us bring in Ketia in.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think again, there's a player with a lot of Premier League games, and when you come up, I know that Leicester have a lot of Premier League experience and a lot of Premier League background. But when you come up, there's that step up, and I think other teams who've come up like Ipswich have been very naive, like their fans have been very naive about the step up. And you've got two players there in Ayew and Edouard with a lot of Premier League experience who, when they go to these grounds, are not going to be phased. It's not new to them. I think they're two maybe not spectacular signings, but very solid. But Edouard out of the both of them, Ayew is the embodiment of what you need, but Edouard could be the one that really ignites for you, and it kind of worries me a little bit. But he's only on loan, so
Yeah, so again, so you mentioned it's kind of it works both ways, and worst comes to worst.
mm,
Again, we kind of train him up, we give him some game time, and we give him back to you.
yeah,
You mentioned him as second striker, that and then being the main man. And what stuck out to me is that in this club, in this football team, it's always going to be Jamie Vardy that's going to be the main man. Um,
yeah,
that's the thing. So you mentioned that, I
mm,
was like, oh, that's really good. He'll get the game. I think he'll get the
mm,
60 minutes or so. Ayew will probably play out on the left wing or the Mavididi competition, but he can play striker if he needs to. And then you've got Edouard. Where does his role fit in? So if he isn't good at linking up, Jamie Vardy is good at that. So
mm,
potentially there is an option because Steve Cooper is a bit malleable. Do you think he could
mm.
play in a top two with Jamie Vardy?
Oh, I think he could. Yeah, I think he could play off Jamie Vardy. I think he could. I think playing off a striker is probably what he prefers. He did also in the first season under when he joined under Vieira play on the left. Um, but there he played quite well on the left actually. But then when we played him there in subsequent seasons, he didn't play well there. But he could be someone used off the left and right. But I think his best position at Celtic was off a striker. I think him off Jamie Vardy would. I think that'd be interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's not where he's not good and where he really frustrates. And like the guy who sits next to me, he hates Edward. Like he'd just be like hammering him. And I like this. I love the guy who sits next to me because I think he's a very knowledgeable person about football. We have good chats in the game. He can't stand Edward.
Hmm.
I still think there's a player there somewhere. But the thing that he's not good at is being the one up top to hold the ball up. He's not good at holding the ball up.
Hmm.
And his touch sometimes in the box. He over like 5-10 meters, he's very quick. But his touch can let him down as well. It can be frustrating, but I don't know what it is. There's still something there for me that thinks he could be someone who scores a lot of goals in the Premier League. So I think that's the intriguing one for me out of the two.
It's interesting because again, I think that when we were linked to him initially, because I remember speaking to you years ago, but under Brendan Rodgers, he was the player that was going to be the Jamie Vardy replacement. We were linked to him for ages,
You did a
and
video with Doug about him, didn't you?
we yeah, we
And
did, yes. And
Doug's very knowledgeable in Scottish football, and he gave a very overwhelming recommendation. Like, I mean, I've got it here. I think on Edward was he got 87 goals in 179 games for Celtic compared to 21 in 103 for Palace.
yeah, it's night and day in comparison. And I think it's unfair, as you mentioned, just to say, well, it's a step up between Scottish Premier League
Mm,
and the Premier League as well. So I think again, I'm hoping for a good player there. And I think if you look at the signings that we've made, all of them have kind of been at that not really unbelievable players, but oh yeah, I remember him. Oliver Skip's another one. Premier League experience will battle Decolt over Reed. Again, kind of a good enough
yeah,
signing to get us and stay in the Premier League that is going to be okay being a squad player that can play in multiple positions. So I think that's what you're going to come up against in the game because in that position we're not going to be able to out technical you, but we're going to try and out fight you in terms of heart and
mm,
character. And it's something
yeah,
that not I've not really seen that in a team for quite some time since Nigel Pearson.
really. Yeah, I mean that's obviously going to come from Steve Cooper. And to be honest, like I went to Forest away when in Forest's first season back up under Cooper, and I was impressed. Like we played really badly. It was kind of really the beginning of the end for Vieira. But I was impressed because what you're describing is what I saw in that Forest team. Um, it was a hard place to go. I know Leicester fans don't like me saying it, but the atmosphere was good and stuff. Like,
It,
um,
it is. He
and
was
and
great, and
I
that.
think
Yeah.
you will come with a lot of fight. I think what will be interesting. Hopefully now Decore is fit enough, and Decore is strong in the tackle that it don't bother me if you come like that because we've got characters like Manos who is just like that. I mean, under Glasner, we're very intense. I think you can bring that. I don't know how much it will help you to be honest, but like you need that, and particularly I think those attributes really come into play at home as well. You make it a horrible place to go, intense place to go. I think Cooper. I thought he was a great appointment given the points deduction. So I kind of rethought the other day when it looks like you're not going to get one, whether that maybe you could have gone a bit more risky. But I think he's an intelligent manager who, yes, they threw money at Forest, but it's not easy to throw money and mold it. And the way that I saw it, that Forest team at City Ground and how he was quickly molding a team impressed me actually. I think for your target to stay in the league, I think it's a very shrewd appointment if your fans can get over the Forest connection.
We've got over it already. I mean, we are singing the BC for Wes Morgan because Wes Morgan came from Nottingham Forest as well. It was
Mm,
Steve Cooper is a blue, he hates Forest, just because we choose that. We all get behind I think we had a
yeah.
little bit of we were linked to Graham Potter, we were linked to Carlos Corberán, again, it's a great manager in the
Mm.
championship. And then to not get either of them and get Cooper, we all had a little bit of a
I thought Potter would relent and finally go to a club for you.
yeah.
But the man's obviously enjoying living off that Chelsea salary. But I think as well, he kind of was waiting for the England job, which I don't think he's going to get because I think Lee Carsley's going to get it. So he's going to have to take a job at some point,
For me it was he
unless
had
he just wants to live off this Chelsea pension. Like,
there's that, but also I was just saying, look, if he's not going to come to Leicester and he doesn't want to come, as good of a manager you are, please move on, and then we can.
yeah,
And then we moved on. We got somebody else. Um, England is a weird one because I think that would have been his next job for whatever reason. It could be the money, but I just don't see why he wouldn't take the England job. For me, that makes sense and what England need.
yeah. I mean, why I think Potter would take the England job. I don't think he's going to be offered it though. I don't. I think Lee Carsley is going to be offered it. I think this whole interim thing is just a farce. That's what they did with Southgate, and then he got it. Um, I personally quite liked what I saw from Lee Carsley so far. And to be honest with Potter, I think you've got to win over the big players in the dressing room. And with Carsley, yes, he's an unknown, but he hasn't got any big marks against him. He's won an under 21 tournament. Whereas, and a lot of those under 21 players are now coming up the squad and love him. With Potter, you look at him and go, well, I know it's Chelsea's a circus, but you still look at it if you're a big player and go, well, flopped at Chelsea. Why are you getting England job? So
Hmm.
I think that for me, Potter doesn't deserve the England job. Even though Chelsea is obviously a circus, I feel like he's got to come back, go to another club, and show what he showed at the club I won't mention, and earn it again. You don't flop at a club and get the England job.
Hmm. Yeah,
Where I think Carsley is actually more warrants that job, having won an under 21 tournament. Actually, I think that's quite natural, quite good. It worked for Spanish, than Potter. So I think Potter is in a limbo in his career, and he needs to get back into football quickly because people get forgotten quickly. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
When it comes to players, when it comes to
yeah,
managers, who did we play recently? I can't remember. There was the name of a Tranmere manager. I can't remember what his name was now. My friend was saying, oh, he used to play like Man City or something back in the day.
mm,
I have to find his name. And again, it shows you things go up and then come straight back down again.
yeah.
And just like a job on your CV, people go, well, why have you taken that much of a gap? And you can't say because they kept paying me money.
But I think Potter's turned down a few, because we were getting heavily linked with him post Hodgson,
Mm.
heavily linked with him. He was spotted it, I think, watching a few of our games and stuff. I know that doesn't mean he's going for it. He probably watches a lot of games, but there was a heavy link. You know, I he was definitely one of the names being talked about. And then he's obviously potentially maybe turn you down. We don't know if he did. Um, he might regret a few of those ones he's turned down soon.
We'll have to see because again,
Yeah,
he is a good manager, but as you mentioned, the game moves on very quick. Managers
yeah,
come and managers go. Players and people will remember him. The longer this goes on, the more people are going to remember the bad spell it was at
yeah,
Chelsea rather than the good spell
yeah.
it was at Brighton. This is a good
Mm.
point. And then pretty much that's in terms of that. My only question to you, because obviously I'm thinking about just staying up. That's all we've got to do this season.
Yeah.
From what you've seen so far from the Premier League teams, the teams come up for the
Mm.
Championship, who would be
Yeah.
your teams to go down?
You know who I think, right? Because I did this prediction thing with Doug and I loved it. It was such a good podcast. It was so fun to do. And I had you get relegated based on your point. I thought you were getting 6 points deducted. But I did say on it, I said out of the three less because everyone else on that podcast had Ipswich to stay up. And I was just like, I don't know what it is that they've come out and played nice football. It's for me, it's a bit naive.
Offense.
That step up to the Premier League is brutal. Like even some Ipswich fans were talking about Europe. I was like, what are you on about? Like, good luck. For me, you were the team with the most points. You had a bit of a fall, but you were the team with the most points. At the start of the season, it wasn't looking good for you. You lost your manager, you lost your best player, and you were going to have a 6 points deduction. You looked doomed, right? You got a good, solid manager in my opinion, who actually, I think, actually, that's unfair. He's more than a solid manager. He's an intelligent guy, did very well at England youth level. And I think there's more layers to him, actually, than just some guy who keeps the team up. And it's going to be, I think he'll have a more stable environment at Leicester than Forest to build something. Um, I think you've got to stay up this season to start that process really of building something. And you've got all the foundations of your training ground. I think that now, out of those three clubs, you've got Premier League you've got a lot of players with Premier League background experience. I think Wolves.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting. Wolves is a
I think
very, very
Wolves.
interesting
I
one.
don't think they've started the season that well. And I think Gary O'Neill did very well first season. Can he keep up? They've not really invested. They've lost Neto to Chelsea. I think they could be the one to slip. I don't know if O'Neill will be there in January. Maybe that's Potter's next move. Like, Bournemouth lost Solanke, but they seem to be covering that. I think they'll be all right. Um, I think Wolves.
Wolves are a really interesting one. I think,
I think the two other teams who went up are going to go down, and I
yeah.
think Wolves might slip in. I think you and Wolves could be in a battle. Um, I don't know anyone else really who I think will be sucked in. If I'm honest, I think it's going to be tough. Um, I think Brentford will be all right, even with like Ivan. I think because Thomas Frank, I think, a very underrated manager. He always impresses me the way he sets his teams up.
Mhm.
Um, and I think maybe Bournemouth. I did say Bournemouth 17th, but they seem to be okay without Solanke, but that's a big loss. But Wolves are the one I would say. Are the
So
one I
I'll throw a couple of other names at you, just because again, when we were talking about probably the tops, when we were
yeah,
thinking exactly the same at the beginning of the season, who's going to
yeah,
be around there? We've been already looking at their results, going, what have they
yeah.
performed?
Mm.
Nottingham Forest.
Sorry to say, I don't think they'll go down. I think, but I don't know. It's like my FP fantasy football brain. But because they got like players like Elanga and Gibbs White who are very good on and Hudson Odoi, I think they've got enough about them to stay up. And I think again, I said I hate to say it, but the City ground has a good atmosphere. I think they'll be all right. They'll operate somewhere between 16th to 13th, in my opinion.
Fair enough. It sounds about right. I could see
Yeah.
them again. It depends on how well Nuno goes, and also with their owners being so
Yeah.
all over the place.
And also as well for our kind of teams, injuries is so key.
Hmm.
Like last season, as much as Hodgson frustrated me, we had Eze and Elise injured so long, and we were a completely different team in the minutes. Like so, Forest, if they got injuries like that, say Gibbs White and Alanga got injured at the same time, then there's the depth's not there for our kind of sides. So, we don't have the players on the bench like these top 10 six clubs. So, that's going to play obviously a massive part in it as well.
Yeah, that makes a good point. And I think the only one that I've got is Everton, but every year
Oh
they
yeah,
manage to dig it out. Um,
but yeah, no, but they're doing so bad, and their squad's awful, mate. Like I look at their 11 every week, and I had them to stay up based on Daesh. So just like Daesh will just do it. But like I don't think they're so. I mean, the White McNeil. I mean, still, it's like their forward lines bang average. Yeah, Calvert Lewin when he can play, but he's injured. Like probably plays once every 5 games. I and they lost. Is it Anana to Villa? I'm not so sure I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I think they could be in trouble. I think the rumor is that Moyes might come back in,
that's the rumor at the moment. They did
and that
get
would lift. That would be a
heavily.
lift up. I mean, what's interesting with Everton is one of our co-owners, John Texter, is
Yes.
wants to buy them out, and he's a very interesting character that polarizes opinion, the way he does things. Palace doesn't really trust him. They're a bit of a circus. So Everton, I would say I am more thinking they could go down than I was at the beginning of the season. I think it's possible, but Daesh is Daesh.
It is, but to kind of
Who
play because
also
I
I think is Prince Harry's real dad, by the way.
it's part of that with Everton as well. They're on -8 already goal difference. They've only been 3 games in. Um,
Yeah,
is but Sean Dyche has a way, and Everton always just find a way of just getting out where you
yeah.
think, how have they
Uh,
done this again,
they
again?
stayed up. Yeah, those 2 seasons in a row when Vieira kicked the fan. Do you remember that? Yeah, on the last day. So I think yeah, I'd still if I had to put some money on it, if I had to bet my gnome on it, I would still say Everton stay up.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think your impression of Ipswich again, have been incredibly impressive, and I
Yeah,
would
but I
really
think I think we've mentioned the two that you could drag in. I think it's Wolves and Everton that you could drag in potentially, like
yeah.
out of the. But I think the other two promoted sides go down for me.
I think
I
Southampton are
think
gone after seeing them last
I
season.
maintain what I said. I think you are the best team to stay up who come up, and you are a Premier League team. Like you more Premier League team established than Palace in so many ways. Like I know we've been in the Premier League a long time and not been relegated, but what you've done in the Premier League and you were fighting top four consistently for a few years. Like I think you can you've got to modify expectations. But to get back to, I think obviously your first aim would be to stay up and then get back more to the top 10. I think you've got the infrastructure behind you and the Premier League experience in there, which is important to
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. That is going to
And
be the case eventually.
yeah, and the momentum now because you're not getting the points deduction, it's just going to lift you. And that's what I'm worried about a bit on Saturday is you're going to be so buoyed by this. Like imagine being in that dressing room, like we're not getting 6 points deducted, like,
Mm.
and your fans are going to be well up for it after that. Like,
I'm with you, but I'd still snap your hand off for a draw right now. For a 1-1 draw at this moment in time, I would take that because
yeah,
the point is needed, and then after that we've got Everton, and that is the game that Leicester fans go in. We don't need to even draw that. We need to win that because
yeah,
if we are gonna go right, we need to create a gap. And
yeah,
we are all good playing decent performances. And against Aston Villa,
mm,
we were playing a decent performance, but we didn't get the points.
yeah.
You need to at some stage get the points.
Mm,
And now we've not got the point deduction. But from what you were saying, I don't think you're feeling in exactly the same position. I think we're just desperate, a bit more desperate because we've just come up from the championship.
mm. I think we're different in that sense. I think that Palace, we feel like no ifs, no buts. We need to get 3 points on Saturday. That's no disrespect to Leicester. I think it's frustration that we got 0 points from Brentford and West Ham, and that's disappointing for us. And based on our next game, Man United, but I'm confident. We think we've got to go for the 3 points, and I think as what I've said to you about Glasner and his mindset, we will be going for 3 points on Saturday. But I think it's going to be a tight game. But I think Man United next. I think we could be the ones that see off Ten Hag. I think we could get in the sack.
Ooh.
Genuinely, I'm
But he's
calling
just
it
signed a new
now.
contract.
I think he's going to go, mate. I think that Liverpool performance was shocking. And honestly, if you watch, we when we beat them 4-0, right? And they that night they had a lot of injuries. They played Casemiro at the back. which annoyed me because all the overlap, which is now basically Gary Neville and his mates. But if they want to invite me, I'll definitely come on. But they've got another Palace podcast. Um, like, it's basically like they were all, oh, it's just because of injuries. At that time, we had Gahey. Gahey was out, by the way, for all that run with Glasgow. Gahey played about one game. We had Lerma, who had used from as a central midfielder in defence, out. He was playing Nathaniel Klein as a right-sided centre back. And he adapted. Ten Hag didn't adapt. He just put this Real Madrid defensive midfielder in at centre back. Those players were not playing for him. It was embarrassing. Elise was top form, like, and absolutely ruined. Like, I honestly, I think I'm calling it now. Clip this. Ten Hag will get sacked after the Palace game in a few weeks' time.
I, I think if that was the case, they wouldn't have given a new contract. They would just let him see out the last year. What was the point of giving the extension?
Yeah, but it also shows that the way they were talking to other managers, they've got doubts. And I think they've started poorly. They're giving him a stay of execution again. But if he does, I think they'll be all right. Southampton away the next game and get away with it. But if they play poorly and we come out how I know we can come out and we beat them in another brutal fashion, I think he's done. And Southgate's available now, mate.
Yeah,
who
yeah.
actually was next door to my cousin's office today with his PR team.
Is he?
He's making moves. He's
Up in
making
Manchester,
moves.
is it?
No, it's in London. But United operate in London. All their
I
fans
was
are in
gonna
London.
say it's pretty much the
Yeah,
same thing nowadays in terms of fan base.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got. I mean, we've covered so much in the time.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited. I'm happy for you in terms of I've seen you on this channel go, mate. I've just had enough of this. I'm just sad, and I think you've seen it with me when we
Yeah.
mentioned the game at the beginning of this podcast, going the 20 just go, and I think I said to you, mate, we were in a state, and you're like, you'll be okay. And I remember speaking to you after the game, going, and you go, oh yeah, you're in a really bad state. And we've both been there, but I think we're both on the men now in different, but in very different stages of our men.
I'm excited that you guys are back in the league. Like, I missed doing these podcasts, but do you know what? It looked a lot of fun because I met the first game of the season last season. I went to Sheffield United away, which is, by the way, the hub for away days. Like, there were so many different teams passing through Sheffield, and I sat next to a Leicester fan on the way back, and they would look like you were loving life, like you were playing, like going down to Championship doesn't actually scare me. Like, you were playing football for good football, you were winning games, and you got to avoid a point. I think I put something on social media. So basically, Leicester went down, got to rattle Leeds fans, come back up without a point deduction. Like, it looked a lot of fun, to be honest. I know you had a bit of a sketchy point with Maresca and like not changing his way, and you weren't winning, and suddenly it looked like maybe you wouldn't even get automatic. But that was kind of worth it just to get the Leeds fans' hopes up. So like, there's probably one Leeds fan that we know sitting somewhere in a room blaming it all on set pieces.
I will tell you a story afterwards about this. But he thought he was going to win the league, and I messaged him going, "We will finish above you," and he goes, and he started laughing, and then I messaged him afterwards, "Hey, hello, mate," and I sent him the hives. Hate to say I told you so, and then he's still, I think we know who we're talking about, still managed to go, oh well, I was still right. Again, there was never like, fair enough, you got one.
Right, yeah. Well, what's funny, we're the team who started their relegation because we went up there this is on Roy's resurgence and beat them like 5-1. And I was watching it in Cape Verde at a sports bar full of Leeds fans who were giving it to me at 1-0. At the end of the game, bar had emptied. But yeah, it was funny. It was funny to see you rattle Leeds. But yeah, I think Saturday is going to be a cracking game. I think it's going to be close. I think we've had a lot of players off on international duty. So I think it's a good time to play us, actually. But yeah, what I'd say to Leicester fans is, if he's playing because he's had a niggly injury, watch Adam Wharton on Saturday. Special player. That partnership to Corey, I think, is going to be that propels us to a good season. But I think I'm backing you guys to stay up.
I think so. I'm hoping so. Now that we've got this no point deduction now, and we'll probably get into that. But Ali, again, it's been great to have you on again. Love to chat, and hopefully we'll get some time, even if we're not playing. I think it'll be great to have these chats.
And we didn't even talk about Wilfred Zaha nearly joining you.
Yeah, and that was a whole thing within itself, and within that. But again, make sure you go check out Addy's channel. I'll leave a link to the description and it'll also be in the title. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.